With today's onslaughts of crossovers and SUVs hitting the roads by the millions every day, it seems that a lot of manufacturers are losing touch with what used to be some of their greatest hits, like four-door sedans and minivans. However, in the past year or so, certain manufacturers have started to realize that minivans or MPVs are really still a great way to haul you and your family around. And this week, Toyota has sent us over their latest and most advanced version of a minivan that's been in their lineup for years on end. So get ready, because today on the driveway, we're going for a spin and showing you all around the brand new hybridized 2021 Toyota Sienna. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so welcome to the brand new 2021 Toyota Sienna. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's been a fat minute since I've driven a minivan or an MPV or whatever they call them nowadays. And I was pretty excited when I found out that Toyota was sending me their latest rendition of their longtime minivan. However, there are a couple of things that I'm not so sure about. What I am sure about, though, is that if you are looking for an SUV, specifically a bigger three-row SUV, and pricing is your #1 concern, you might want to look at the pricing of one of these too, because it is very competitive to what a lot of bigger three-row SUVs and crossovers are going for these days. Now, the one we're in is a Sienna XSE front-wheel drive. Now, of course, it does get a lot more expensive than this, but it also gets a lot less expensive than this because the XSE sits right in the middle of the Sienna lineup. Now, the standard MSRP on this is 42 grand even, which sounds like a lot, but then again, you are getting a lot of van or a lot of vehicle for your money. But there are a few noteworthy options in here, and it adds up quite quickly. The two most noteworthy ones in this case are the XSE Plus package for an extra grand and $1,415 for an onboard rear entertainment system. Add those up plus all the other options and a $1,175 delivery processing and handling fee, and for this example, it comes to $47,544, which, like I said, is a pretty competitive price point when you put this up against a lot of the bigger three-row crossovers on the market. But it doesn't drive like a crossover for one specific reason. And all I need to do is put it in drive and hit the gas pedal, and you'll see exactly why. So let's start off our drive by doing the one thing I just said. Take the gear shifter, put it in drive, hit the gas pedal, and we are greeted with a sound that basically is reminiscent of a golf cart. And that's for one specific reason, because now the new Sienna is only available as a hybrid. So no big thirsty V6s or puny little 4-cylinders with no power whatsoever. Instead, what you get is a 2.5-liter dynamic force 4-cylinder engine, a nickel metal hydride battery cell, and in the front wheel drive model that I have here, one permanent magnet synchronous electric motor. All added up, it makes 245 combined system horsepower, but the benefits are plentiful in terms of fuel economy. The rating for this one and most Sienna front-wheel drive models is 36 in the city and 36 on the highway. A complete break-even fuel economy across the range. Now, while there is some benefits in terms of fuel economy, the one drawback for a hybrid that I cannot stand no matter how many times I drive them, it's the transmission. And the Sienna is certainly no different because every single one of them has the same thing. The electronically controlled CVT, the continuously variable automatic transmission. And I'll be honest with you, every time I step on the gas pedal, not only do I just get this constant buzz of the engine, not really feeling like it's going anywhere, but I also get this sensation that whatever I'm driving is attached to a rubber band. It just doesn't have any real feeling of performance to it. It doesn't feel like, you know, you're really going many places that quickly. And all you really need to do is look down at the speedometer for just a brief second as you're accelerating normally, and it just seems to take forever to get it up to freeway speeds. I've had this thing more in the power band on the sort of eco meter instead of my tachometer most of the time I've been driving this van, compared to how I've had it sort of in the green or even in the charging mode when I'm braking. So aside from its performance woes as an XSE model being a full-blown hybrid and weighing nearly 2¼ tons as it sits, the Sienna does drive very comfortably. I can definitely say that, and that's something I've come to expect out of most minivans, MPVs, people carriers, again, whatever you want to call them. The real benefit to this one is that even though we have a sport-tuned suspension consisting of McPherson struts in front, multi-link out back, it really just glides along the road. And yes, it can be a little noisy in here. It can be a little bit echoey because I've got so much space going on in here. But aside from that, it's really comfortable. I mean, the seats are like armchairs. These things, I could just lean all the way back, put my hand on this fixed armrest right here in the middle, and just sit back and cruise. I mean, I could totally take this thing on a road trip to like my dream destination in Colorado or something. Like, that would be the best thing ever, driving the new Sienna. Now, even though the sport suspension doesn't translate every single bump and nuance in the road up into the cabin, there is one other thing that they've kind of sportified a little bit, which is the steering. And you wouldn't really know it unless you reach down here in the drive mode, put this thing in sport, so I just flick it up till the gauges turn red, and suddenly the steering actually feels a lot tighter. It really feels like it's much more responsive, and this is a specifically tuned version of Toyota's electric power steering, and I gotta give them credit where it's due. Like I said, despite the weight of this thing, it does feel a little bit more nimble, which is, again, very surprising considering that this is a minivan. So at the end of the day, I know what most of y'all are thinking. How could I possibly forsake a big, bulky, 3-row crossover that I know is going to take care of every need and want that I have in favor of a minivan? Well, let's look at the positives here. In most 3-row crossovers, at least the ones that I've driven, you get a good amount of space in the second row. That's a given. The third row usually gets forsaken in favor of small kids. Not in this though. The third row of seats back there has oodles of room, thanks to the fact you could slide the seats back and forth by about a mile. Yeah, you'd have plenty of room. And plus, if you're a larger family that's got 4 kids and they've got friends, or maybe you've got a lot of relatives coming over, then yeah, the minivan or MPV makes a lot more sense. So, is it worth the $47,000 for this XSE trim? Well, I'm going to leave that up to you. But what I'm going to also say is that it's not just the way it drives, but it's also the way it looks. Now, I know I'm not the only one to ever say this, but if you would ask me what I thought of minivans and their designs as of maybe a couple of years ago, I probably would have told you they're one of my least favorite looking vehicles on the market. However, nowadays, we've been seeing so many new vans and MPVs coming out with some really beautiful and sculpted bodywork, and this new Sienna is certainly no exception. And even though we have the sportier XSE trim and a very sporty paint color at the same time, I love the curvaceous curvaceous nature of this new Sienna's design. It really stirs my senses a lot more, certainly, than its previous generations. Now, because we have the XSE, we have all kinds of blacked out goodies like the black surrounded LED headlights, which these are a little bit different for the XSE. So you have the LED daytime running light strip down here, your LED turn signal in the corner, and your LED high and low beams. However, even though these have the auto high beam assist, as you can see, they are not projector style, so they don't have the auto leveling and adjusting. You can get that, however, on a limited or a platinum if that is a feature you like. As you look down below, you also have plenty of metallic black going across the massive grille here in the lower end. Of course, you can see we have the intuitive park assist with the sensors lining the middle part of the bumper. We have the wide angle LED fog lights down there in the lower corners. And finishing it all off, we have the Toyota badge up here, which is of course surrounded in blue because the Sienna, as I said, is pure hybrid. Now, from a side profile, again, you see more of the Sienna's curvaceous lines sticking out of every single surface. And one thing that's actually quite interesting about the Sienna is that almost all of them are the same size. Sounds pretty obvious, right? But the XSE trim is a little bit longer by about an inch or so. It's 204.1 inches long, and really the only reason I can deduce that down to is the sportier bodywork we've got going on all over. Therefore, it extends the front and rear of this van ever so slightly. But continuing with some of my favorite features here, you cannot ignore the XSE's gloss black finished 20-inch alloy wheels. And I say gloss black, but parts of them almost have this kind of carbon finish to them, and I really love the way that looks. It kind of makes the wheels look a little less boring, a little less monochromatic. As I said, four-wheel disc brakes underneath, and these are wrapped in 235/50 series Michelin tires. Now, I know I keep going on about it, but you look down the side of the Sienna and the first thing you see is this beautiful curve going all the way up the bodywork, right over the rear haunches where it meets the taillights at the back. And I just really love the more artistic flavor that Toyota has given their flagship minivan. But in terms of features, it's exactly what you'd expect. The XSE gives us these gloss black exterior mirror caps. On normal ones, they'd either be black plastic or they would be body color. They're not power folding on this one, but if you want things like power folding mirrors or a 360 camera, you can get those as you go up the trim ladder. These are equipped with standard blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, and on this one, they also have the addition of heated exterior mirrors as well. And of course, as we swing around to the side, we get to the advanced Toyota keyless access system. Now, you notice the key is a little bit different compared to normal ones because we have unlock and lock and the tailgate, panic, and the releasable key, but you also notice we have the two additional buttons for the power sliding doors. Now, what's cool about this is that although you can just press and hold the button and it'll pop the rear door open for you, or you can hit the little button on the rear door as well, this has a hands-free rear door access, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But if you want to unlock the vehicle, it's exactly the same as before. You just grab the handle, two beeps indicates it's open, you hit it again, and now it's locked. Before we continue on to the rear, let's talk about that hands-free rear door access. As I said, to open the rear doors, there's really 4 or 5 different ways you can do it. There's a button on the inside. If you're inside the van, you can push it. It'll pop the door open for you. You can pull the handle on the inside or the outside. Pretty typical like you would in most vans. But you have a little button here you can actually push, and that will open the door for you if perhaps your hands are full. Or you look way down here at the bottom rocker, you'll notice these little indentations right here just underneath the front door. Just like a hands-free tailgate, you kick your foot underneath. From a rearward perspective, the Sienna looks just as polarizing back here as it does up in the front. First of all, I love the shape of things like the taillights, how they have the little split point right there and the piece that trails all the way down almost to the midpoint of the bumper. Now, of course, it's not all one taillight. This is painted gloss black, of course, and the main taillights are almost LED. You have the LED main bulbs, LED reverse lights, but you have incandescent turn signals back here, which I kind of would have expected them to go full LED everything. I think that would have made a little bit more sense compared to how they did things up in the front. Of course, as you can see, the typical badges, the XSE and hybrid badges down here. You also have more gloss black along the bottom, and within that gloss black trim, you can also see the rear sensors for that intuitive park assist that I was mentioning earlier. The XSE also gives you the blacked out badge here across the top of the tailgate, and of course, the government mandated backup camera is hidden right down here just above the license plate as well. Now, the cool thing I really love back here is we have a little bit of a tow bar back here. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use this for towing. I would more so use it for things like maybe a wheelchair hoist or a bike rack or something like that. I think that would be more fitting of something like this. But all the same, it's kind of neat that Toyota gives you that, even if this one is not meant straight for mobility. Now, of course, the benefits of a minivan don't just stop at the fact that it has room for you, your friends, and all your family. It also carries a benefit of cargo space. And you think the back of an SUV is big? It has nothing on the back of a minivan. So as the power tailgate rises up on the Sienna here, we look in the back and we are greeted with a gaping wide space here in the back. Now, obviously, those second row of seats slide forward and back, so the rear cargo volume can vary a little bit. But with the seats in all their correct positions, say with the third row of seats folded up, you're looking at 33.5 cubic feet of space behind just the third row of seats. You fold down the third row like you have here, and that extends to 75.2 cubic feet of space. And then comes the real fun stuff. You fold down all the seats in here, you get them all the way as far up as they can go, you're looking at 101 cubic feet of cargo space. So really, anything you can't fit in the back of this thing, you really need a pickup truck for that. Now, to those who think that a minivan's interior is always going to be as bland as a pack of saltine crackers, you guys should take a look at the Sienna's new interior. Now, yes, there is a lot of familiarity in here from some of Toyota's other products, but everything in here is simple yet functional. Like, for example, the seats trimmed in this particular Chateau Softex material here. This is specific just to the XSE here with the orange stitching and, of course, the two-tone design as well. They are heated for both the front occupants, but if you want full leather seats with, say, heating and cooling, you'd have to jump up again to like a limited or a platinum if that's a feature that you're looking for. Apart from everything else, like the design of the steering wheel, it's still a very familiar design, has the nice perforations at 9 and 3, has a nice little bit of gloss black there along the bottom as well. The steering column is manual tilt and telescope, so you have the little latch here on the side. And in typical Toyota fashion, we also have a few ubiquitous blank buttons here just to the left of the steering column. But there is a few little things that are noteworthy, like the auto high beam assist, the 120 volt alternating current outlet. So like an inverter, if you need to plug that in, that's what that little AC current is for. Traction control, you have the gas door, which hopefully you shouldn't be opening that too much with this car's hybrid powertrain. You have the button to turn the power doors off. Then you have the typical stuff like the trip meter and gauge dimming. Now, from where I'm sitting in the driver's seat, this Sienna feels absolutely huge. And if you thought it was big looking at it from the cargo area, then you need to get up in the driver's seat of here, because for starters, the windshield is enormous and I have great visibility out of every single window. Now, in terms of what you get as a driver, it's all typical Toyota stuff. Things like the radar cruise control functions here on the right side of the steering wheel, including the distance sensor and the button for the lane keep assist and lane departure warning, as well as a few hands-free radio functions like seek track and radio mode, which then continue over to the other side of the wheel, like your hands-free Bluetooth and voice recognition, volume control, and you also have the arrow pad and OK button that controls the multicolored display right there in the middle of your analog gauge cluster. Now, whereas a lot of other vans and MPVs in this segment might have a 10, 11, or 12 plus inch screen for the infotainment side of things, the Sienna in general makes do with a 9-inch touchscreen. However, thanks to the XSE Plus package on this test car here, we have the dynamic navigation system for one, which I've never really been a fan of. I mean, the graphics are a bit basic, to be honest, and as you can see, the feedback on there is not exactly great, but we still have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, CarPlay, things like that in here. And if you want to get into that setting, you just simply go into the menu tab and you can see we have destination, audio, Bluetooth phone, we have the Entune app suite in here, and we also have the projection function, which allows you to access Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Aside from that, you have general setup and general information, as well as a touch function or a touch sensitive version of the climate control system, which I don't know why you would use that when you have the full bank of buttons sitting just right below the screen. Now, if you can't be bothered to use the touch functions within the screen itself, there are 8 tabs here right on the outside of the screen that of course do all the basic functions. So you have the home button here, which takes you back to the split screen. So you have like your Bluetooth audio and your dynamic navigation. You have the menu function where we just were. You have audio and map where it blows up the map full screen. You have seek track. You also have Bluetooth phone and your Entune app suite, not to mention just your typical power and volume knobs and your tuning and scrolling knobs as well. But aside from the slightly pointless navigation and the typical Toyota technology in here, the one thing I have been enjoying the most during my week with this van is, of course, the audio system. We have a JBL premium audio system in here with an onboard subwoofer, and I'm gonna tell you guys, you push the power button just a little bit and you are in for a real treat. Of course, there are some other typical things you would expect from a van like this, or really any car for that matter, such as the backup camera with these nice wide guidance lines here. And I will tell you that not only is the camera quality, you know, somewhat decent for what it is, but also the intuitive park assist works really well here. It's very responsive. I haven't had any issues with it, and it's actually saved me from bumping into a couple of things on a couple of occasions. Now, when I put it back in park, you'll listen. It does have the automatic door lock, so as soon as I put it back in park, they will automatically open. The moment I put it in gear and start rolling, they will automatically lock. Now, to make sure things stay nice and cool inside the Sienna, we actually have a 4-zone climate control system. And this is just the front half here. There's a control station in the second row of seats as well, but it has all the pretty simplistic controls on it. So the temperature triggers are nice and large on the outer edges here. And in the middle, these 4 include your fan speed, the ability to turn on the rear AC, or at least control it from up here in the front. You have the sync, which of course allows you to synchronize the temperatures. And you also have the mode function as well, which is just another fancy term for your climate zones. Down below that, you have the buttons for the heated front seats here. You also have automatic, turning the AC off, your front and rear defrost, air conditioning recycling, as well as air recirculation. Now, considering that the infotainment system and climate control is pretty much the most button-laden area of this entire vehicle, or at least the front half of it, you look down in the center and there's really not a whole lot going on up here. You have the optional wireless charger just up in front of the shifter here, and if perhaps your phone doesn't work with that, or perhaps you can't be bothered to use it at all, there is a simple USB over here to the left of that as well. You also have a simple gear shifter. It just goes straight back. None of the typical Toyota gated kind of nonsense that they've been using in a lot of their vehicles recently. It does have a sport mode with 6 manual gears inside of this CVT. And to be frank with you, I mean, it's still a CVT. It still feels like I'm driving something attached to a rubber band. It's just not my favorite transmission in the world. Down below that, you do have a few little extra buttons. As you can see, the light for the automatic electronic parking brake just kicked on. So the moment I put it in park, the brake automatically activates. We have the automatic brake hold, which that's always a nice feature to have. We have the EV mode, of course, this being a hybrid. That means we can run on electric power alone, not to mention the drive mode select that I mentioned earlier. So we have eco, normal, and sport modes. And really, it doesn't feel like it changes this van a whole lot. Again, not only considering its weight, but again, considering it is a hybrid, and those have never been very sporty to begin with. You do have a couple of nice size cup holders in here. And I say a couple, you really got like 4 or 5. You've got 2 sizable ones up here in the front. As you can see, the front one here has this nice little square spot as well, and it is the perfect size for this car's key fob. So you could actually set it up there and not have to worry about it at all. And these are plenty big enough for, say, fast food, soft drinks, etc. I can't say the same though about these. You would probably need to have a smaller like bottle of water or something like that if you're going to be putting something up here in these smaller cup holders. But as you can see, it also has a nice size slot, so I can actually fit my whole phone right there and not have an issue about that. And not to mention, not only do we have these giant armrests right here, but we have a massive center console, which just seems to go on forever. And the only way you could tell there's anything there is by these little lights from the two different style USB ports, where I have one USB-C and one USB hidden underneath. Now, although driving the Sienna can be a pleasurable experience on its own, being a rear seat occupant is even better. First of all, take a look at how much room I have back here. And these seats are scooted, well, about midway up. But if you want to adjust them, all you do is pull this latch up. The bottom of the seat comes up, the back of the seat goes forward, and you can slide them as far back or as far forward as you could possibly want. Then to lock it in place, just push the seat back, push the seat front down, the seat's locked in place, and now you can get in. You got huge grab handles up here on the side, which is always nice, even though I don't really feel that I need those. And once you slide yourself past the little armrest here on the side, you can push the button down here by the edge of the door, and you don't have to worry about someone doing it from the outside. Once in the back, however, you realize, again, not just how much room you have in here, but that you really have some of the best seats in the house. And I'll explain what I mean. First of all, you have two more USB chargers back here, one standard style and one USB-C. We have a 1500 watt 3-prong inverter down here at the bottom. So if you want to say, I don't know, plug in your gaming console via the HDMI and it requires a 3-pronged plug, well, you can do that just fine. Now, I mentioned a game console, and as you can see, I have a remote here. Wonder what that goes to. What about that? An 11.6-inch rear entertainment display. Now, I've not had the chance to try this out yet, but I would wager that playing a game on that would actually be a lot of fun. And what I also love about sitting back here is, aside from the fact that the TV drops right into my line of sight, the rear seats are more stadium style, so you're actually sitting over the top of the front seats, and it gives you a commanding view out the front. And we know how kids can be with motion sickness, so that's always a plus for me. You also have two sizable cup holders down there in the bottom, and of course, what fun is an infotainment set if you don't have some headphones to go along with it. Now, I would advise you, do not go losing these things, because according to the window sticker, well, they're not exactly cheap to replace. And of course, you also need to keep things cool in the back, so here is that second half of the 4-zone climate control system back here, and it has some very simple functions. So 2-person temperature controls, you have the off button, automatic, fan speed, and of course, your climate modes. In conclusion, the 2021 Toyota Sienna is a great example of a family hauler that has a little bit more of a green thumb. And it's also a great vehicle for those who say, well, you know, some of today's crossovers are still a bit too small for me. It provides a great spacious area environment for you and your family, but it also gets the added benefits of its hybrid powertrain. So if you're the type of person who has a little bit more of a green thumb, but still wants space for the whole fam, then the Sienna should definitely be one to look at on your buying list. But that wraps it up for today's review. So if you liked this video, or perhaps you learned something today, please give this video a thumbs up. And also, while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down below, because trust me, it will benefit the both of us in the end. At the end of the day, though, all the credit goes right back to Toyota USA for allowing us access to their new Sienna to drive around for a whole week. But at the end of it, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.